Beneath the sun-scorched hills and ancient olive groves, there lies a land that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the clash of faith, and the dreams of millions. A land where every stone tells a story, and every shadow hides a secret. This is Israel and Palestine, the cradle of civilization, the epicenter of conflict, and the keeper of mysteries that have baffled historians for centuries. From ancient temples to modern battlegrounds, the history of this land is not just written in books, it is etched into the earth itself. And today, we are about to uncover its secrets. For thousands of years, Israel and Palestine have been more than mere points on a map. They are the crossroads of the world, where the ancient and the modern collide. Hey, the stories of kings, prophets, and ordinary people intertwine, leaving behind relics of civilizations that shaped human history. But beneath the surface of holy sites and bustling cities lies a complex tapestry of culture, politics, and untold stories. Stories that the world has barely glimpsed. In this documentary, we journey through time and space, exploring the landscapes, the legends, and the living history of the land that changed the world. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more breathtaking travel documentaries, mysterious histories, and secrets from around the globe. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a journey into the unknown. Before there were kingdoms, before there were empires, before a single word of scripture was written, there was this land. Between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River, humanity took some of its earliest steps towards civilization. It is here, in the heart of what we now call Israel and Palestine, that our collective story truly begins. Beneath layers of earth and time lie the bones of cities older than memory, fragments of tools shaped by forgotten hands, and walls that once guarded some of the first organized human settlements on Earth. Archaeologists call it a cradle of civilization, and not without reason. Around 10,000 years ago, while much of the world was still ruled by nomads and hunters, something extraordinary happened here. Humans began to settle permanently. They built homes, tamed animals, and learned to cultivate the fertile soil fed by the Jordan River. From that moment, history changed forever. Jericho stands as the crown jewel of this transformation. Believed to be one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited cities, Jericho's ruins tell a story of innovation and endurance. Its ancient walls, dating back nearly 8,000 years before Christ, were not just a defense. They were symbols of permanence, of a people who had chosen to stay. Within these stone barriers, archaeologists discovered circular dwellings made of mud brick, storage pits for grain, and elaborate towers that may have served both practical and spiritual purposes. It was, in many ways, humanity's first experiment in urban living. But Jericho was only the beginning. As centuries passed, more settlement appeared. Ai, Megiddo, Lachish, and Hazor, each evolving into centers of culture and commerce. Trade routes emerged, connecting the fertile valleys of the region to Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the wider world. Through these routes came not only goods, copper, ivory, spices, and textiles, but also ideas, languages, and religions. The land became a vast crossroads where the destinies of continents converged. Archaeological finds scattered across the region reveal astonishing craftsmanship and complexity. Pottery adorned with intricate designs, tools made from flint and copper, and idols carved from stone show a society both practical and profoundly spiritual. Some figurines, depicting goddesses of fertility, suggest that early inhabitants worshipped forces of nature, fertility, rain, and harvest. Their rituals, though lost to time, laid the foundation for the monotheistic faiths that would later arise here. By the 2nd millennium BCE, the region was home to the Canaanites, a network of city-states that thrived on trade and diplomacy. Their language, culture, and art influenced neighboring civilizations, and fragments of their legacy still echo in the Hebrew Bible and other ancient texts. Yet, this period was also marked by upheaval. Waves of conquest swept across the land. Egyptians, Assyrians, and later Babylonians all sought control over its strategic position. To rule Israel and Palestine was to hold the bridge between Africa, Asia, and Europe, a bridge that carried the lifeblood of civilization itself. Among the dust of time, one people's story would rise above the rest: the Israelites. Emerging from the highlands, they brought with them a radical concept, a single, unseen God who ruled not just a nation, but the universe. Whether one views the biblical narratives as literal history or sacred legend, the influence is undeniable. The stories of Abraham, Moses, and David were born here, in these valleys and deserts. They shaped moral codes, inspired empires, and changed the way humanity understood existence. Jerusalem, the small hilltop city that would later become the focal point of global faith, began its ascent during this era. Archaeological discoveries point to early fortifications and temples, evidence of a people establishing both political and spiritual authority. The Temple Mount, or what ancient texts refer to as Mount Moriah, became the symbolic heart of this early civilization. Here, legend and archaeology intertwine, where faith meets stone and myth meets memory. But the land's history is not merely one of kings and prophets, it is also one of ordinary people. Farmers who coax life from rocky soil, artisans who shape clay into beauty, traders who brave the desert winds to carry messages and good between worlds. Their lives, though unrecorded, were the threads that wove the fabric of this civilization. In ancient tombs and buried villages, archaeologists continue to uncover their stories. A child's toy, a mother's jewelry, a pot still bearing traces of olive oil pressed thousands of years ago. And yet, for all we have uncovered, mysteries remain. Beneath modern cities and political borders, vast sections of this ancient world are still buried, waiting. Some say that beneath the streets of Jerusalem lie chambers that hold forgotten scrolls or artifacts that could rewrite history. Others believe entire Canaanite or Israelite settlements remain undiscovered beneath the sands of the Negev or the hills of Galilee. Every excavation opens new questions. Who were these people? How did they live? And how much of what we know today has been shaped by the fragments we have yet to find? As we walk through these silent ruins today, the air itself feels heavy, with memory, with faith, with the echo of prayers whispered thousands of years ago. Stones crumble underfoot, but the spirit of this land endures. It has seen empires rise and fall, temples built and burned, and yet its essence remains unchanged, a witness to humanity's endless struggle to create, to believe, and to belong. The ancient foundations of Israel and Palestine are not relics of the past. They are the living roots of who we are. Every civilization that followed, Greek, Roman, Islamic, and modern, was built upon this bedrock of innovation and faith. To understand this land is to understand ourselves. Because in the dust of Jericho, in the shadow of Jerusalem's walls, and in the silent desert winds that whisper through forgotten ruins, the story of civilization itself began. If there is one city on earth where heaven and earth seem to collide, it is Jerusalem. For over 3,000 years, its narrow streets have echoed with the footsteps of prophets, conquerors, and pilgrims. Here, the sacred and the political intertwine so tightly that even the stones seem to pulse with emotion. To some, it is a city of God. To others, the heart of their ancestral homeland. And to many more, it is a center of an eternal struggle between faith and power, history and destiny. As dawn breaks over the city, golden light spills across its ancient walls. The call to prayer from the Al-Aqsa Mosque mingles with a distant toll of church bells and the murmured Hebrew prayers from the Western Wall. Three faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, share this sacred skyline, each claiming spiritual roots that reach back to the dawn of human history. For the Jewish people, Jerusalem represents the holiest of holies. The Western Wall, known in Hebrew as a Kotel, is all that remains of the Second Temple, destroyed by the Romans nearly 2,000 years ago. Yet for Jews around the world, it is not a ruin, it is a promise. The faithful press their hands against its ancient stones, whispering prayers written on scraps of paper, tears tracing the grooves where countless generations have wept and hoped. Each stone is more than architecture, it is memory made tangible. A few streets away lies the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the most sacred sites in Christianity. Inside this sprawling, candlelit labyrinth of stone, pilgrims from every corner of the globe come to walk the final steps of Jesus Christ, through the Via Dolorosa, to the hill of Golgotha, and finally to the tomb where, according to faith, he rose from the dead. The air inside is thick with incense and emotion. Centuries of devotion have polished the floor smooth. In this single structure, countless denominations coexist, Orthodox, Catholic, Armenian, each preserving their own rituals, their own claim to the miracle of resurrection. And then, high on the Temple Mount, the dome of the rock glows like a beacon. Its golden dome, reflecting the sun, dominates the skyline. Beneath it lies a rock sacred to all three religions. To Muslims, it is a spot from which the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven during the night journey. To Jews, it is a site where Abraham prepared to sacrifice his son Isaac. And to Christians, it is a symbol of divine testing and faith. Nowhere else on earth does one place carry such immense spiritual gravity for so many. Yet this shared sanctity is also the source of the city's deepest divisions. Throughout history, Jerusalem has been conquered, destroyed, and rebuilt more than 40 times. Egyptians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Crusaders, Ottomans, and modern powers have all claimed it. Each new ruler reshaped its walls, its temples, and its destiny. Each believed they were fulfilling divine will, or human ambition disguised as it. During the Crusades of the Middle Ages, rivers of blood flowed through its streets as Christian and Muslim forces battled for control of the Holy Land. Centuries later, under Ottoman rule, Jerusalem became a symbol of coexistence, where mosques, churches, and synagogues stood side by side in a fragile harmony. Yet even then, tension simmered just below the surface, waiting for the next spark to ignite centuries-old rivalries. The sacred sites of this land are not just monuments. They are mirrors reflecting humanity's greatest devotion and deepest flaws. The same faith that inspires peace and compassion has also been used to justify conquest and exclusion. And in Jerusalem, these contradictions lie side by side. Beyond the city, the echoes of faith resonate through every hill and valley. In Bethlehem, the Church of the Nativity marks the birthplace of Christ, its ancient mosaics still glimmering beneath candlelight. In Hebron, the Cave of the Patriarchs houses the tombs of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, shared by both Muslims and Jews, divided by walls but united by ancestry. On the Mount of Olives, tombs stretch across the slopes, a silent sea of stone awaiting resurrection. And in Nazareth, where the angel is said to have spoken to Mary, life goes on quietly, blending tradition with the modern rhythm of a growing city. Everywhere you look, the sacred weaves into the ordinary. Children play in alleys lined with history. Merchants shout prices in markets that have existed since Roman times. Pilgrims from Africa, Asia, and the Americas cross paths, each carrying their own version of truth. And above them all, the call of faith continues, ancient, enduring, and inescapable. But beneath this divine beauty lies a fragile truth. Holiness does not erase humanity. Jerusalem, for all its spiritual significance, is also a city divided by walls, by politics, and by centuries of grief. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has made it not just a place of pilgrimage, but a symbol of resistance and hope, of occupation and belonging. Every stone here tells a story, but not all stories are told equally. Even so, the spirit of the land endures. Festivals and prayers continue. The sound of music rises from synagogues, churches, and mosques alike. Despite the conflict, people find ways to coexist, to share coffee, trade goods, or tell stories of their ancestors. It is a fragile peace, often interrupted, but never extinguished. What makes this land truly sacred is not only a connection to God, but its connection to humanity. It is a reminder that people can build, destroy, and rebuild endlessly, and still cling to hope. The faiths born here continue to guide billions across the planet. Every scripture, every prayer, every act of devotion traces back, in some way, to this sun-drenched, war-torn, miraculous land. And as night falls over Jerusalem, lights flicker across its hills like stars brought down to earth. The city sleeps, but the echoes of prayer never fade. In the silence, you can almost feel it, the heartbeat of history, the weight of belief, and the eternal question that haunts this place. Can the land of prophets ever truly find peace? The land of Israel and Palestine is ancient, but its wounds are painfully modern. Beneath the same skies that once witnessed prophets and kings, the hum of drones now replaces the chant of prayer. Roads that once carried caravans of spices and silk are now lined with checkpoints and concrete walls. Yet amid the sound of division, there is still the faint echo of something older, deeper, hope. The modern history of this land is a story of dreams and displacement, faith and fury. In 1948, after centuries of exile and persecution, the Jewish people declared the establishment of the State of Israel, a rebirth of a homeland promised in ancient texts and forged in the aftermath of unimaginable tragedy. For many Jews, it was a fulfillment of a prophecy, the end of a long journey home. For many Palestinians, it was the beginning of another exile, the Nakba, or catastrophe, when hundreds of thousands were forced from their homes, their villages erased, their lives uprooted in a matter of weeks. The world watched as hope turned into heartbreak, and two peoples, each with legitimate claims, memories, and pain, became locked in a cycle that still defines a region today. Wars followed: 1948, 1967, 1973. Borders shifted, maps were redrawn, and generations grew up in the shadow of barbed wire and broken promises. The Six-Day War in 1967, in particular, changed everything. Israel's swift victory gave it control over the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem, territories that remain at the heart of the conflict to this day. But beyond the politics, beyond the speeches and treaties, are the people, the millions who live this reality every day. In the crowded streets of Gaza, children play among rubble, their laughter defying despair. In the olive groves of the West Bank, families continue to harvest fruit from trees planted by their ancestors centuries ago, their roots running deeper than any border. And in Tel Aviv, a city built on dreams, the skyline gleams with modern ambition, towers of glass rising beside the remnants of ancient ruins, a symbol of Israel's innovation and resilience. This land, in all its contradiction, is a mirror of the human condition. It is capable of immense beauty and unbearable sorrow. Walk through the streets of Jerusalem or Ramallah, and you'll find that life continues with a kind of stubborn grace. Markets burst with color, spices, fabrics, fruits, and bread warm from the oven. Old men play backgammon in the shade. Young artists paint murals of freedom on walls built to divide them. And through it all, the rhythm of daily life beats on, steady, defiant, alive. The struggle here is not only about land, it's about identity, belonging, and survival. For Israelis, security and recognition are non-negotiable, born from a history scarred by persecution. For Palestinians, freedom and dignity remain unfulfilled dreams, carried in songs, stories, and the keys to houses long destroyed. Between these two truths lies a chasm of misunderstanding, and yet also a bridge of shared humanity that refuses to break. Over the decades, there have been glimmers of peace. The Camp David Accords, the Oslo Agreements, handshakes that made headlines and promises that sparked hope across the world. But peace, like water in this arid land, is fragile. Every step forward seems to be followed by two steps back. Violence flares, ceasefires crumble, and generations inherit the same conflict their parents knew. Still, the yearning for peace persists, whispered in prayers, painted on walls, sung in lullabies. In recent years, the landscape has continued to change. Technology, culture, and global media have transformed both nations. In Israel, startups and universities push boundaries in science and medicine, earning it the nickname the Startup Nation. In Palestine, filmmakers, poets, and musicians tell stories that reach far beyond borders, redefining how the world sees them. Their art is resistance, their voice, survival. Yet the scars remain. Barriers of concrete and ideology cut across hills once walked freely by shepherds and traders. The tension between modern progress and historical pain creates an uneasy coexistence, one where innovation and tradition, hope and trauma are locked in a delicate balance. But even here, amid the politics and polarization, humanity persists. Israeli and Palestinian activists work side by side for dialogue. Joint schools teach children from both communities under one roof. Farmers share irrigation systems. Musicians perform together, blending languages and rhythms into something uniquely their own. And beyond the headlines, the land itself continues to tell its story. The deserts still bloom after the rain. The Dead Sea still glows like liquid silver beneath the sun. Pilgrims still walk ancient paths, their faith unbroken. This endurance, this unyielding will to live and to believe, is perhaps the greatest miracle of all. But the future remains uncertain. Can ancient wounds ever truly heal? Can this land, sacred to billions and scarred by centuries, find a way forward that honors all who call it home? The answers are elusive, like mirages on the horizon. Yet one truth endures. This land has always reinvented itself. Civilizations have risen and fallen here, but life never stopped. From the ruins of Jericho to the skyscrapers of Tel Aviv, the story continues. As night descends over the hills of Galilee and the lights of Jerusalem shimmer in the distance, the air hums with both tension and tenderness. Somewhere, a child falls asleep to the sound of distant calls to prayer. Somewhere else, another child watches the same stars and dreams of peace. Two lives, two truths, one sky. Perhaps that is the essence of Israel and Palestine, not the conflict that divides them, but the humanity that connects them. Because beneath the flags, beyond the walls, and through the centuries, this has always been more than a struggle for land. It is a struggle for belonging, for coexistence, and for the soul of the world itself. And as the sun sets over the hills of Jerusalem and the olive groves of the West Bank, one truth becomes clear. Israel and Palestine are not merely places on a map. They are living stories, ancient mysteries, and the heartbeat of a world still searching for answers. What secrets will we uncover next?